I was a stage manager right out of college. I was making $3.24 an hour. I didn't really know what, and I didn't cry. Something magic could happen, and that's how I feel about Horizon. It's a movie I made for myself.
Kevin Costner, a name that once made all of Hollywood bow its head. A man with proud blue eyes, the stance of an American hero, and a career that once blazed like wildfire. The Untouchables, Field of Dreams, The Bodyguard, and Dances with Wolves. The masterpiece that carried him straight to the Oscars on his very first turn behind the camera. For more than 4 decades, Costner has redefined the cowboy figure, crafting stories the whole world remembers. But that light never stood still. Behind the golden statue and multi-million-dollar blockbusters lay a private life filled with fractures, 2 marriages ending in divorces worth hundreds of millions, an out-of-wedlock child he once denied, swirling rumors of affairs, and a string of failures that made Hollywood turn its back. Costner once stood at the height of power, only to be recast in the public eye as the arrogant star who fell. Today, at 70, he admits that all he seeks is a quiet love. Something fame, fortune, and the spotlight have never given him. But the question lingers. After the scandals and heartbreak, will Kevin Costner be remembered for his talent and resolve, or for the scars of a personal life that never healed? And Horizon, the project into which he has poured his entire fortune, will it stand as his eternal legacy, or the final gamble of a flawed legend? If Field of Dreams once made you believe that miracles happen when you dare to dream, or if The Bodyguard once moved you to tears with its immortal love song, then hit like as a tribute to the man who poured his entire heart into every frame of film. Because behind the spotlight and the golden trophies, Kevin Costner's story didn't begin with glory. His first stage was classrooms that changed too often, a childhood haunted by the shame of always being the new kid, and a relentless longing to finally call someplace home. Early life. Kevin Michael Costner was born on January 18, 1955 in Linwood, California, into a middle-class family. He was the youngest of 3 brothers, but from the very beginning, shadows hung over his life. His second brother died shortly after birth in 1953. The loss left a lingering wound in the family, making his mother, Sharon, a social welfare worker, more sensitive and protective of her children. His father, William, worked as an electrician before becoming a manager at Southern California Edison, providing the family with financial stability, but at the cost of constant relocations. Because of his father's job, the Costner family moved frequently, from Garden Grove to Ventura, then Visalia, to the point where Kevin attended more than a dozen different schools. For a young boy, it felt almost like living in the military, always the new kid, always standing outside groups of friends who had long known one another. Unable to build lasting friendships, Kevin grew up with feelings of isolation and insecurity. He later admitted that those years left him with an intense longing, a hunger for a true home to belong to. That theme would echo throughout many of the roles he chose later in life, but in childhood, it was simply an aching emptiness. Still, Kevin did not allow loneliness to consume him entirely. He found an outlet in sports and the arts. Baseball, basketball, football. Any sport became a place to channel his energy. On the field, the undersized boy, just 5 feet 2 inches when he graduated high school, could momentarily forget what it felt like to be on the outside. At the same time, he studied piano, sang in the church choir, and occasionally wrote poetry. These activities served both as an escape and as a way for Kevin to assert that he had a world of his own. But not every dream survived. A shoulder injury forced him to abandon his hopes of pursuing sports professionally. The disappointment was sharp, but it left behind an invisible legacy: discipline, patience, and a refusal to quit. Later, he often recalled those cold mornings of training on the field as lessons that steeled him against the many failures he would face in Hollywood. Kevin then leaned further into music and the arts. He played piano, wrote poetry, and sang in the church choir. In those moments, the usually withdrawn boy discovered a safe space, a place where he could release his emotions without fear of rejection. And during those years, another seed took root: a fascination with Western films. How the West Was Won, the classic epic about the American frontier, held him transfixed before the screen, dreaming of stories far larger than his own life. His childhood was a journey of constant adjustment, endless challenges, and learning how to adapt in order to survive. Those years not only forged his resilience, but also planted within him a burning need to prove that he mattered, to find his place in the vast world. That desire, sparked in the fragile days of boyhood, would quietly drive him for the rest of his life. Early career. When Kevin Costner entered California State University, Fullerton, in 1973, he chose business administration, the safe path for a middle-class kid with no connections and no foothold in show business. By day, he played intramural sports, joined the Delta Chi fraternity, and looked every bit the typical American college student. But at night, another life unfolded. Kevin enrolled in acting classes, stepping onto small stages, training his voice, practicing movement, learning to listen to scene partners, all while keeping it hidden from everyone, even his girlfriend, Cindy Silva. The feeling of being the new kid, which had haunted his childhood, now transformed into a different drive, to find a place where he truly belonged, perhaps on the stage. After graduation, he took a marketing job, hanging his diploma on the wall as reassurance to his parents. But the fire inside him only grew. The turning point came after his honeymoon in 1978. On the flight home, Kevin spotted screen legend Richard Burton seated just a few rows away. He waited until Burton closed his book before nervously asking for advice. Burton smiled, looked into the young man's blue eyes, and gave a reply as simple as it was transformative. "You'll be fine." As Burton's car pulled away from the airport, he rolled down the window and wished him good luck. That was all it took. Within a month, Kevin resigned from his office job and hurled himself headfirst into the risky path of acting. The first years were a grind, hauling bricks in the morning, driving a truck in the afternoon, sometimes working on fishing boats. At night, he went to acting classes, only to wake early the next day to stand in endless casting lines. He took any odd job that could pay the rent and still leave him enough strength to train. Auditions often ended with the words, "We'll be in touch," followed by silence. There were bit parts without credit, long hours spent in casting waiting rooms, watching his confidence chip away, piece by piece. Cindy, who had stood by him since college, became his only real anchor during those harsh years. His first film role came in Sizzle Beach, USA, a low-budget sex comedy shot in the late 1970s for a meager $1,800 fee. The film wasn't released until 1986, and when it finally surfaced, it felt like a blemish on his artistic record. Kevin cringed at the thought of anyone seeing it. A brighter glimmer of hope arrived in 1983 when director Lawrence Kasdan cast him as Alex, the deceased friend, in The Big Chill. Kevin filmed several flashback scenes and believed it could be his breakout moment. But when the film hit theaters, all of his scenes had been cut, leaving only a fleeting glimpse of his hands in the coffin. The blow was so heavy that he began applying for office jobs again, ready to fold up the dream. And then the simplest words saved him. Just one more year. Cindy urged him. Kevin stayed, and that one more year changed everything. In 1985, Kasdan kept the quiet promise he had made after the Big Chill and invited Kevin to play Jake in Silverado. As the reckless young cowboy, Costner burst onto the screen with fresh, mischievous energy, breathing new life into a Western genre thought to be fading. Silverado didn't turn him into an overnight superstar, but it was the door that finally swung open. And this time, no one slammed it shut. That was the beginning. Kevin Costner was not yet a star, nor an Oscar winner, but he had something more important, an unyielding will, and the conviction that his road, however rough, would eventually lead to a place worth reaching. Success and peak of fame. After his breakthrough in Silverado, 1985, where Costner breathed fresh life into the young cowboy Jake, Hollywood began to take notice. But it wasn't until No Way Out, 1987, that he truly proved his dramatic strength. Playing a naval officer trapped in a labyrinth of political conspiracies, Costner brought a mix of intelligence and vulnerability, a kind of hero distinct from his contemporaries. That same year, the Untouchables cemented him as an A-list star. Standing between Sean Connery and Robert De Niro, Costner was not overshadowed, but instead provided the crucial balance in the battle between justice and darkness. Connery won the Oscar, but it was Costner's steadiness that made the film a classic. From there, his career soared. Bull Durham, 1988, and Field of Dreams, 1989, were not just baseball films. They embodied two sides of the American dream. One was gritty, romantic, and humorous. The other a hymn about faith, fatherhood, and redemption. Kevin Costner became the face of the American man, laconic, strong, yet tender, a cultural icon far beyond the screen. His absolute pinnacle came in 1990 with Dances with Wolves. It wasn't just a film, it was a gamble. A 35-year-old actor with no directing experience dared to helm a 3-hour Western epic filled with Lakota dialogue while also financing and starring in it himself. The Hollywood press mocked him, nicknaming the project Kevin's Gate, predicting it would collapse like previous Western flops. And then, the unthinkable happened. The film became a worldwide phenomenon, grossing nearly $425 million and winning 7 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Costner, on his first outing behind the camera, made history. One of the youngest directors ever honored by the Academy, and the first to deliver a Best Picture Western since 1931. The film portrayed Native Americans with rare humanity, breaking Hollywood's long-standing stereotypes of indigenous people. With this triumph, Kevin Costner transcended his status as a box office star to become a true filmmaker, someone with vision who could unite art and commerce, turning a Western dream into one of Hollywood's greatest milestones. Dances with Wolves not only brought him to the summit of fame, but placed his name alongside legends like Orson Welles and Clint Eastwood, actors who dared to direct and left a lasting legacy. The 1990s continued with a string of blockbusters. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991, despite ridicule for his awkward English accent, grossed $390 million, proving his box office power. Oliver Stone's JFK, 1991, confirmed Costner's weight in political drama, sparking global debate. The Bodyguard, 1992, opposite Whitney Houston, became a cultural phenomenon. $411 million at the box office and the decade's best-selling soundtrack, led by I Will Always Love You. Then came A Perfect World, 1993, under Clint Eastwood's direction, giving him a rare, complex role as a criminal with deep humanity. While Wyatt Earp, 1994, continued his bond with the Western, reviving the lawman with epic seriousness. At the peak of his stardom, Kevin Costner seemed untouchable. He commanded fees of up to $20 million per film, among the highest in Hollywood at the time, and held creative power, choosing scripts, shaping projects. But the true value of this era wasn't in numbers. It was in the way Costner kept expanding his range. He refused to be boxed into the cowboy or American hero mold. Tin Cup, 1996, proved he could make sports lighthearted and romantic. Message in a Bottle, 1999, placed him in mainstream romance, where he retained sincerity without slipping into cliché. 13 Days, 2000, showed he could revive one of the most tense chapters in modern U.S. history, while Open Range, 2003, directed by Costner himself, restored grandeur and humanity to the Western, hailed by many critics as one of the best of its decade. Even when he embraced the role of a villain in Mr. Brooks, 2007, Costner shocked audiences with his cold, dual-faced menace, a complete inversion of his former good American man persona. Later supporting roles, Hatfield's and McCoy's, 2012, which won him a Golden Globe, Man of Steel, 2013, as adoptive father Jonathan Kent, or Hidden Figures, 2016, as the stern but fair NASA manager, only reinforced one truth. Kevin Costner's peak wasn't a brief blaze, but a foundation built to last across genres, decades, and transformations, with a versatility few actors have ever matched. Turmoil and shadows. Kevin Costner's glory seemed untouchable in the early 1990s, but Hollywood is a place where no one stays on top forever. Just a few years after The Bodyguard, his career took a sharp turn into troubled ground, where failures, scandals, and fractures in his personal life exposed the darker side of a man once hailed as the biggest star in the world. The first stumble was Waterworld, 1995. Initially billed as the decade's great sci-fi epic, the film quickly descended into a production nightmare. Storms destroyed sets, costs ballooned from $100 million to $175 million, and the schedule stretched more than 150 days. Costner, both star and investor, even poured in an additional $22 million of his own money to keep the project afloat. In the end, while international box office and home video sales helped soften the blow, the press branded it Kevin's Gate, a symbol of arrogance and overreaching ambition. Worse, his longtime friendship with director Kevin Reynolds collapsed. Reynolds accused Costner of seizing control, stealing the director's chair, and swore never to work with him again. If Waterworld could still salvage something, The Postman, 1997, was a true disaster. Acting as director, producer, and star, Costner sank $80 million into this post-apocalyptic epic. Instead of being celebrated like Dances with Wolves, the film was panned mercilessly, grossing less than $30 million and sweeping the Razzie Awards. It became one of the most notorious flops in Hollywood history, nearly burying the reputation Costner had built over the previous decade. From #1 star, he suddenly became a liability, shunned by major studios and even Creative Artists Agency once his powerhouse representative cut ties. His private life was equally turbulent. After 16 years of marriage, his 1994 divorce from first wife Cindy Silva left a painful void and a record $80 million settlement, one of Hollywood's most expensive divorces at the time. With his career faltering and family life in ruins, the tabloids swarmed with stories of infidelity, ranging from a nightclub hostess in London to high-profile co-stars. The most explosive was a brief affair with Bridget Rooney, which resulted in an out-of-wedlock child. Costner initially denied paternity, only later admitting after a DNA test that Liam was indeed his son. The ensuing legal battle over custody further tarnished the image of the all-American man. The 2000s offered little relief. Box office failures like 3,000 Miles to Graceland, 2001, and Dragonfly, 2002, devoured budgets but bombed, with some films not even getting wide international release. Costner, once commanding $20 million a role, now struggled for relevance, sometimes putting up his own money just to sustain projects he believed in. He also became entangled in lawsuits outside Hollywood. In 2010, his company, Ocean Therapy Solutions, provided oil separation technology to BP after the Deepwater Horizon spill. The deal erupted into legal disputes with partners, including actor Stephen Baldwin, who accused Costner of deception and profiting behind their backs. Though Costner ultimately won the case, the scandal reinforced his image as an overly ambitious star willing to gamble in risky arenas. Even when he clawed back acclaim with Hatfields and McCoys, 2012, and soared again with Yellowstone, 2018, backstage conflicts dogged him. Rumors swirled that he meddled too much with scripts and demanded filming schedules be adjusted to fit his passion project Horizon. Tensions with creator Taylor Sheridan spilled into the press, ultimately leading to Costner's exit from Yellowstone to the dismay of fans. But perhaps the heaviest blow came in 2023, when his nearly 20-year marriage to Christine Baumgartner collapsed. The divorce quickly devolved into a public courtroom drama with battles over property, custody, and staggering support payments. Christine initially sought $175,000 per month. After negotiations, the court set it at $63,000, still a staggering figure. The press dissected every detail, from disputes over homes to access to their 3 children. Once again, Costner's personal life was laid bare before the world like a chaotic stage play. Through it all, Kevin Costner has tasted the bitterest defeats: box office disasters, infidelity scandals, costly divorces, and noisy lawsuits. He was once celebrated as the eternal symbol of the American man on screen, but off-screen he has wrestled with unavoidable tragedies. These shadows have made his image more complex, not just a star of glory, but a man who has stumbled, been doubted, and forced to rise again from his deepest wounds. Business and music. Kevin Costner is not only an actor and director, but has also crafted another portrait of himself, a man of ventures beyond the silver screen, both a daring entrepreneur and a passionate musician. In the early 1990s, at the height of his fame, Costner was already looking to expand his influence into business. In 1991, he purchased and upgraded the Midnight Star, a luxury casino restaurant in Deadwood, South Dakota. The venue quickly became a fan destination, its walls lined with images and props from Costner's iconic films. The Midnight Star was more than just an entertainment spot. It was a Costner museum where visitors could revisit a slice of cinematic history through his career. Though later entangled in management disputes and ultimately sold in 2020, the project demonstrated Costner's ability to transform fame into commercial value. His business ventures weren't limited to entertainment. After the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, Kevin Costner's name surfaced in an unlikely field: environmental technology. He had invested in Ocean Therapy Solutions, OTS, a company specializing in machines that separated oil from seawater. Several of these devices were leased by BP to help combat the disaster. Yet along with this success came legal battles. Partners, including actor Stephen Baldwin, accused Costner of withholding information for personal gain. The lawsuit dragged on for years, but Costner ultimately won, with the court ruling he had not engaged in fraud. The case laid bare a truth. Costner never shied away from high-risk business gambles, ventures as perilous as the blockbuster productions he once led. At the same time, he found another outlet: music. His love for rhythm and melody, nurtured since childhood when he played piano and sang in a church choir, finally took shape in 2007 with the founding of his band, Kevin Costner and Modern West. Here, Costner was no Hollywood star, but the lead singer and songwriter, touring across the US and Europe with a country rock sound. Their debut album, Untold Truths, charted on Billboard, and their tours occasionally intersected with major sporting events like NASCAR. What surprised audiences was not technical vocal brilliance, but sincerity. Costner stood on stage like any ordinary musician, singing about love, sorrow, youth, themes familiar yet deeply genuine. Follow-up albums such as Turn It On, 2010, and From Where I Stand, 2011, reinforced the image of Kevin Costner not only as a storyteller in film, but also in song. He even brought his music into film projects. Modern West composed songs for the miniseries Hatfields and McCoys, 2012, weaving another layer of connection between acting and music. For Costner, music was not a side hobby, but a way to stay balanced amid the turbulence of Hollywood and business. In the end, his ventures in business and music painted the portrait of a multifaceted Costner, a man bold enough to risk casinos, environmental tech, and travel apps like Here, but also one who never abandoned his first love: music. In both arenas, whether in triumph or setback, he has remained steadfast, always experimenting, always creating, always telling his story in more than one voice. Personal life. Kevin Costner once said, "A career can glitter, but family is the real test." And indeed, his private life has been filled not only with love, but also with turmoil. It all began with his first marriage to Cindy Silva, the woman who stood by him from their college days until he reached the peak of fame. They met at California State University, Fullerton, in 1975. Cindy, with a gentle beauty once compared to Snow White, a role she played at Disneyland while working part-time, quickly became the inspiration for the young business student. 3 years later, they married, 1978, at a time when Kevin was still an unknown, torn between marketing and late-night acting classes. Cindy became his anchor, the one who believed in him and urged him to give it one more year when Kevin nearly abandoned his dream after being cut out of The Big Chill. During their 16 years together, They had 3 children: Annie, 1984, Lily, 1986, and Joe, 1988. While Kevin grew busier on film sets, Cindy kept the family intact, raising the children and even assisting on the production of Dances with Wolves. On the surface, they were the perfect couple, a rising Hollywood star and his loyal wife, always smiling at premieres. But cracks soon emerged. Fame came fast, schedules grew relentless, and romantic roles constantly placed Costner alongside beautiful co-stars, all of which weighed heavily on the marriage. By the early 1990s, tabloids churned out stories of alleged affairs. From a nightclub worker in London during Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves to rumored flings with colleagues. Though Costner denied much of it, the erosion of trust was irreversible. Cindy, after years of trying to preserve their home, finally let go. In 1994, they officially divorced, ending a 16-year marriage with one of the most expensive settlements in Hollywood history, around $80 million. It was not just a financial blow for Costner, but a deep personal shock. From the man who seemed to have it all, he suddenly became a cautionary tale about the price of fame. Not long after, Costner entered one of the most controversial chapters of his life. A brief but consequential relationship with Bridget Rooney, heiress of the powerful Rooney family, owners of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the mid-1990s, as his all-American man image faltered after divorce, news broke of his involvement with Rooney. The romance was fleeting, but in 1996, Bridget announced she was pregnant and insisted Kevin was the father. Publicly, Costner remained evasive, even silent, refusing to acknowledge the child. The scandal erupted. A star fresh from a costly divorce now accused of abandoning his own child. For years, Kevin did not directly admit paternity. Bridget stood firm, and eventually a DNA test confirmed the truth. Liam Timothy Costner, born November 1996, was indeed his son. Kevin later established a trust fund to secure Liam's financial future, and agreed to provide support. Yet unlike his 3 children with Cindy Silva, Liam never appeared publicly as part of Costner's family image. He grew up mainly under his mother's care and later with stepfather, billionaire William Koch. The episode left a deep scar on Costner's reputation. In the public eye, he was no longer just the Oscar-winning star, but also a man accused of dodging responsibility. Tabloids magnified the weak father-son bond, portraying Costner as someone more concerned with career and image than fatherhood. Though his relationship with Rooney ended quickly, it became an unerasable chapter in his private life. Liam, the son once denied, still lives privately today, rarely seen with his father. Legally closed, the story remains proof of a chaotic era in which Costner paid dearly for his choices and lifestyle. After the Rooney scandal, the media followed Costner relentlessly. Through the 1990s, the list of women linked to his name grew so long it sometimes overshadowed his acting career. One of the most notable was Joan London, the famous journalist and host of Good Morning America. In 1995, as Waterworld premiered, the two became tabloid fixtures. Kevin staged a storybook date, whisking Joan onto his private yacht for a sunset cruise in New York Harbor. Joan later recalled it as a night of romance shadowed by pressure. Paparazzi and media attention made any lasting relationship impossible. They split within months, citing the strain of living under constant scrutiny. After London, Costner was tied to a string of high-profile women, supermodel Elle Macpherson, whom he once called the woman on my level, British socialite Bridget Cunningham, with whom he was involved for nearly 3 years, publicly referring to him as Mr. Perfect, and Tawny Little, former Miss America turned TV host, who often appeared with him at glittering events. Beyond real romances, rumors swirled endlessly. Alleged liaisons with Michelle Pfeiffer, Winona Ryder, Sharon Stone, and even a married hula dancer. Most were denied, some patently absurd, yet the sheer volume of tabloid speculation blurred his once clear image. From ideal American man, Costner morphed into a central figure of sensational Hollywood gossip. Caught in this chaos, Costner seemed to embody the archetype of the Hollywood leading man off-screen. Charming, surrounded by glamorous women, but unable to maintain lasting bonds. For fans, it was captivating. For family, it was tragic, deepening the contradictions in his roles as father and husband. After a decade of turbulence, Kevin Costner finally found steadiness with Christine Baumgartner, a model and handbag designer nearly 20 years his junior. They first met during the filming of Tin Cup in the mid-1990s, but only in the early 2000s, after the scars of divorce and fleeting romances had faded, did their relationship blossom. Christine was no Hollywood star, but her elegance, independence, and career ambition drew Costner in. In 2004, after dating and briefly splitting over disagreements about children, Costner, then in his mid-40s, was hesitant to father more kids. They reconciled. Their wedding, held at Kevin's expansive ranch in Aspen, Colorado, resembled a fairy tale. The bride arriving in a horse-drawn carriage, the groom, an Oscar-winning star weathered by life's storms, waiting in a simple suit. The ceremony symbolized not just union, but renewal. Together they had 3 children, Caden, 2007, Hayes, 2009, and Grace, 2010. Though already a father of 4 adult children from earlier relationships, Costner admitted his biggest fear in remarrying was being too old to keep up with the kids. Yet he rediscovered joy in fatherhood, gentler, more patient, more confident thanks to past mistakes. For years, Costner was often seen as the devoted dad, walking his kids to school or attending public events with his family. Christine provided stability, helping him balance grueling film schedules with family life. But beneath the happy photos, cracks formed. The age gap, relentless work, and Costner's perfectionism all weighed on the marriage. The breaking point came in 2023 as he poured himself into his passion project, Horizon, while clashing with the Yellowstone production team. In May 2023, Christine filed for divorce after 18 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. The split quickly turned into one of Hollywood's messiest modern divorces. Christine demanded $175,000 per month in child support, later lowering it to $161,000, while Costner argued it was unrealistic. After months of public battle, the court set the figure at $63,000 per month. Beyond money, tensions escalated when Christine refused to vacate Costner's $145 million beachfront estate, despite a prenuptial clause requiring her to leave within 30 days. Ultimately, the court forced her out, a scene tabloids likened to a courtroom soap opera. By September 2023, they reached a settlement, avoiding trial. Still, the image of Costner's second marriage, once his haven of stability, was shattered beyond repair. For Kevin, It was the second time he saw a family collapse under the glare of flashbulbs, leaving him emotionally and financially drained. The marriage to Christine Baumgartner had given Costner nearly 2 decades of stability and 3 young children tying him to youth. But when it ended in acrimonious disputes, the world was reminded yet again. Kevin Costner's private life has never known lasting peace, even at the threshold of 70. After the 2023 divorce, the media immediately swarmed. Nearing 70, every meal, every step, every woman seen beside him became romance news. It didn't take long for new names and rumors to surface. First was Jewel, the Alaska-born singer-songwriter famed for her raw voice and thoughtful lyrics. In December 2023, both attended a charity event on Richard Branson's Necker Island. Photos of them seated close, speaking warmly, went viral. Jewel later thanked Costner publicly for supporting the Inspiring Children Foundation, fueling more speculation. Soon, headlines declared, "Costner dating Jewel?" Both denied it. Jewel called Kevin a wonderful man, but insisted nothing romantic. Costner bluntly told a radio host it was just friendship. Still, the rumor persisted. Even his children once asked him, "Dad, are you really dating Jewel?" Proof of how hot the gossip had become. Then, in late 2024, a photo of Costner having drinks in Aspen with friends, including Jennifer Lopez, set tabloids ablaze with Kevin Costner, Jennifer Lopez, Hollywood's new couple. In truth, it was simply a group gathering, but a cropped image was enough to ignite a frenzy. By early 2025, paparazzi captured him walking with a mystery woman in Los Angeles, later revealed to be nothing more than his personal assistant. For the press, anyone near Kevin Costner became an instant potential lover. In interviews, Costner admitted his fatigue at such scrutiny. "If I have lunch with a female friend, the next day it's a dating rumor. I've learned to laugh at it." At this stage of life, after 2 failed marriages and countless women linked to his name, Costner says he has no interest in Hollywood-style romances anymore. What he wants is peace. If love comes again, it has to come with respect, simplicity, and a clear prenuptial agreement. Today, Costner devotes more time to his 7 children than to any high-profile affair. He avoids public dating, keeping relationships within his circle of friends and colleagues. Yet for a star, once hailed as America's dream man, the media will never stop pairing him with new faces. In the public imagination, Kevin Costner remains one of Hollywood's eternal leading men, every private step ripe for transformation into a headline. Legacy and influence. Kevin Costner, despite failures, scandals, and the rough stretches of his career, has managed to preserve the image of the quintessential American man, laconic, tough, yet deeply humane. Even his harshest critics have had to admit that he has left behind a rare cinematic legacy. Dances with Wolves not only brought home 7 Oscars, but also revived the entire Western genre, giving Native Americans a humanized voice on screen. Alongside Bull Durham and Field of Dreams, he turned baseball into a cultural metaphor, a stage where family, memory, and faith were brought to life through art. Costner's influence lies not only in the films themselves, but also in his willingness to stake his reputation on risky projects, to step into the roles of producer and director when no one else believed. On television, he rewrote the rules with Yellowstone, turning cowboy drama into a global phenomenon. And with music through Modern West, he proved that his creative passion was not confined to film. He has inspired later generations of artists with his resilience and his insistence on self-determination, showing that a star can stumble yet still redefine himself, transforming failure into fuel. His legacy is not just the award-winning films or the box office hits, but the enduring imprint of an archetype etched into public memory, the American man, authentic, flawed, yet always holding on to faith. Current life. At 70, Kevin Costner is no longer the invincible star of the 1990s, but he has never stepped back. After his highly publicized divorce from Christine Baumgartner in 2023, Costner chose to live more privately, devoting much of his time to his 7 children, from his grown-up kids to the 3 youngest still in school. He avoids appearing publicly with new partners, ignoring rumors linking him to Jewel, Jennifer Lopez, or other mystery women. He's admitted himself, if love were to appear again, it would have to be simple and respectful, no longer the noisy Hollywood romances of the past. On the artistic front, Costner is living inside the biggest gamble of his career, Horizon, an American Saga. This Western epic, which he has nurtured for over 30 years, is planned as a 4-part series set in the aftermath of the Civil War. Costner not only directs, produces, and stars in it, but also invested more than $38 million of his own money and mortgaged his Santa Barbara estate to finance the project. His son Hayes was also cast in the role of Nathaniel Kittredge, turning Horizon into a family legacy as much as a work of art. In 2024, the first installment premiered at Cannes to a 9-minute standing ovation, but its box office performance was disappointing, delaying the release of Part 2 and dragging the project into legal disputes. By August 2025, Costner faced a lawsuit from a stunt performer, which he publicly denounced as a blatant lie. Still, Costner presses forward. Beyond Horizon, he continues to produce The Gray House, a Civil War espionage miniseries with Morgan Freeman, and is set to star in the heartfelt romance Honeymoon with Harry alongside Jake Gyllenhaal. At the same time, he nurtures his love for music through his band Modern West, treating small concerts as a form of healing, while also collaborating with the Hear Hear app to tell stories about American history and culture. To the public, Costner remains a sought-after figure. In early 2025, he took the stage at VMX 2025 to speak about passion, responsibility, and art as a life journey. That same year, he appeared in the Fox Nation documentary series Yellowstone to Yosemite, recounting the historic 1903 expedition. These moves show he is no longer chasing the spotlight, but instead choosing projects with enduring meaning. Today, Kevin Costner stands less as a Hollywood legend than as a man in full, a devoted father, an artist who still burns with creativity, a risk-taking businessman committed to his vision. After all the highs and lows, he is writing the final chapter of his career with resilience and conviction, proving that even in life's twilight, there are dreams still worth betting everything on. Kevin Costner embodies one of Hollywood's bitter paradoxes. A man who once stood at the very peak of power, now hounded by lawsuits, box office flops, and endless rumors. Yet it is precisely this paradox that gives him weight, an artist who refuses the safe path, willing to stake his entire fortune to protect a dream that has burned within him since youth. Costner has never been flawless. He has stumbled, been mocked, and lost more than he has gained. And yet, it is this imperfection that makes him real. that allows his journey to strike a chord with generations of audiences. The unanswered question remains: will Horizon become the legacy he so longs for, or merely a chapter that closes in silence? Will Kevin Costner be remembered as a brilliant star who faded, or as a stubborn storyteller who dared to follow his faith to the very end? The answer will not come from courts or box office tallies, but from the memories of those who once sat in the dark of a theater, held still by the sight of a man standing in a field, at a frontier, among dreams that refused to die. And you, in your own memory, who is Kevin Costner? A legend of the screen or a defiant dreamer? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow so you won't miss the next stories about Hollywood's enduring icons.